love me anyway. And of course, that is a song that is out by Sidewalk Prophets. It's a couple of years old, but an amazing message. And God just laid that on my heart and just began to unfold things. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take it and run with it. But, and as I got this idea, this title, this direction from God of what He wanted me to do tonight, it just reminded me of one thing. It reminded me of those moments when my kids come running to me and saying, hey, I need $10 because I'm going here. And I tell them, hey, look, you can only spend $3, so give me my change back. I want my money back. If they're going off somewhere with a friend or whatever, and hey, I give you $10 or $20, I want my change back. Knowing in the back of my mind that I'm never going to see that $20 or even a piece of that $20 ever again. Knowing that they're going to take advantage of that and just take that $20, that $10, whatever it is, and it's gone, it's spent. But the key is that we still do it anyways. I still give it anyways. Even though, if it's Malia, if it's Braden, if it's Riley or whatever, if they come to me and say, hey, I want to go here, and I need some money, and all I got is $20 in my pocket, I want my change back, I'm never going to see that again. But the thing is that I'm never restricted in giving it, because I want to, they're my kids, and I love them, and so, and I know that they need it. But, and as I was thinking about this, I don't know if you've ever thought about it like this or not, but isn't that the way it is with God? That even though He sent His Son, even though that He sent Jesus to this earth, and He did, it's the same way. We slap Him in the face and we turn our backs, but He still loves us anyways. And of course, you guys know this weekend's Easter, and that's what, and everybody in here, does everybody in here know what Easter's about? Raise your hand if you do, so that it's not an awkward moment. Everybody knows what okay, good. I thought so. Just wanted to make sure. Wanted to cover. I didn't want to be talking over your head tonight. But we all know what Easter's about and what we're celebrating. And so it's just one of those things that's just been rolling through my mind. You love me anyway. Of all the things that we go through and all the things that we do, God, you love me anyways. And tonight, my title is He Loves You Anyway, and I'm speaking that to you, but to yourself, He loved me anyway. Make it personal. And even though that I know that I'm never going to get that 20 back, even though that I'm never going to get that 10 back, even though that I'm not going to see any part of that money back, I do it anyways because I love Him. And it's the same way with our relationship with God. He gives and He gives and He gives. And yes, we love Him, but we do make mistakes and we turn our back and do those crazy things, but He still does it. The thing is even 2,000 years ago, whenever Jesus died on a cross, before His death, before His birth, He knew that today that we would do the mistakes and do the things that we do, but He still put His Son on the cross because He knew that we needed a Savior. He knew that we needed a Savior. He knew that we needed someone to cover us. And so He loves us that much that He sent His Son. He loved us anyways. And so tonight, I want to challenge you with that. And my key scripture tonight is 1 John 3:1, and it says, "See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are." And that's an exclamation point. That is what we are. Sometimes we don't act like it, but we are children of God. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know Him. The reason the world doesn't know us is because it didn't know Him. And I kind of turned that around a little bit, and I got to thinking about it. The reason the world doesn't know Him is because, do we really know Him? And does the world really know who we are through Him? You never, and I've watched these Disney movies with my kids time and time again, these princess protection and all this stuff that my kids watch on Disney and this and that, not Brady, girls. But so many times you've seen this movie where princess from this other country comes over and she starts his high school and nobody knows who she is, and you guys know the story. Nobody knew who she was unless she told them. Until she told them, until the secret was revealed, nobody knew. And I think a lot of times in our life, that's the life that we live. Nobody knows that we're a child of God because we do not tell people. We don't let them know. We keep the cat in the bag and not let it out. And there's a lot of things that you don't need to let the cat out of the bag with, but that's one thing that you do. And I think so many times we keep it to ourselves so people don't know who we are. But He loved us anyways. The great love that He has for us. He lavishes it on us. He covers us. But God, you love me anyways. Tonight, know that. Tonight, know that He loves you anyways. No matter what you go through, no matter what you're facing, what you have done, what you're going to do, He still loves you. You'd be surprised at the people that I've met that feel like God can't love them. And sometimes in my mind, I can't fathom that. It doesn't ring a bell with me because I know His love. But there's people that truly feel that way. So tonight, I don't know where you're at in your life. I don't know where you're at with what's going on with you. But tonight, I need you to know, and I need you to hear me tonight. Because I feel like God wants you to know that He loves you anyways. Tonight, I want to bring up some familiar names out of the Bible, some very familiar names that I want to just share a little bit about them and unveil some things about them, maybe some things that you know about them, some things that you don't know about them. But the first person tonight that I want to talk to is Moses. Anybody in here, just really quick, I don't need to put anybody on the spot, anybody in here really quick tell me who Moses was? Just give me one fact about Moses. Come on, raise your hand. Somebody give me one fact about Moses. Huh? He stuttered. Somebody give me another fact. Who was Moses?
Led the Israelites, sorry. I was thinking of Prince of Egypt. Led the Israelites out of Egypt.
Exactly. He led the Israelites out of Egypt. So I want to unfold and let you guys know. If you don't know who Moses is, I'm going to give you some small facts about him tonight. Go home and read about Moses. But you're right. Moses was a man that had a speech impediment. Moses was also a murderer. He was a murderer. But here's the thing. Here's what's amazing is that God called him to do some mighty things. Even through his stuttering issue, he couldn't get up here and talk. He had to have his brother Aaron do it for him. So immediately when God spoke to Moses, he was like, I can't do it. Sorry, I can't. Have you heard me? I can't do it. So Moses was a man that was a murderer. Moses was a man that couldn't speak good. But God called Moses to do some, and there's some other things. I'm just going to bring out a few points about Moses. Moses questioned God, and he doubted His call. Can anybody in here tell me where how God spoke to Moses? Burning bush. Questions are for the floor, not the boys up top. God spoke to Moses through a burning bush. But God spoke to him. And here's something I want you guys to understand. I want you to listen to this. Moses did question God and doubted the ability that God placed inside of him. Moses wasn't a perfect person. That's the point I want you to get. Tonight, Moses was a murderer. He killed somebody and then ran away. He killed an Egyptian. He didn't make it okay because it was Egyptian. He was an Israelite, adopted into being an Egyptian. It didn't matter. Moses couldn't speak. He couldn't say two words like he couldn't. He sounded like Porky Pig. He couldn't talk. It was terrible. But here's the deal. God didn't look at those negative things. He didn't look at his speech impediment. He didn't look at what he did wrong. He just knew that He had a plan for Moses' life. And He revealed that to Moses. And Moses doubted Him. But here's the thing I want you to get. You know that when you question the ability, I want you to listen to this. I thought this was pretty good myself. You know that when you question the ability that God has placed in your life, that says a lot about what you think about the ability of God. When you begin to question what God speaks into your life and what God calls you to do, if you question that and begin to do that, because here's the thing, we are made in His image. He has got a plan for our life, and so when God reveals that to us, and we doubt Him, That says a lot about what we as an individual think about God's ability. Because we're doubting what God's saying. We're doubting the Almighty God that created you, created everything around you. We're doubting Him. Tonight, Moses wasn't a perfect man. Moses had his issues. Maybe none of that fits into your life. None of us in here are murderers, I don't think. But a sin's a sin. He was a sinful man. Number 2, King David. You might tell me who King David was? Give me one thing about King David. Give me a fact about King David. Come on, guys.
Yeah, he had an affair with
Huh? What?
Had an affair with another one.
Had an affair. Killed Goliath. Anybody got anything else about King David?
He was music?
Huh?
Music?
He was. He was a great musician. King David wasn't a perfect man. Here's the thing with David. Before he even became king, but even though before he became king, God still had a calling on his life. He may not have revealed it to him, but he still knew. But David was that rejected small brother that was back in the back pasture because that's what they thought about him. They didn't think much of David because he was small, he was young. They thought he was just the least of least. It was almost his story growing up was kind of almost like Joseph, in a sense. That it just wasn't the one that everybody thought that he would be the one that would be the leader, the one that would be king. He was the last one chosen of Jesse's sons. But he's the one that he was put in the back pasture. They didn't see any hope in him. He was an adulterous man. He was a murderer as well. There were so many imperfect things about David, but God still had a calling on David's life. God called him to be a king over the land and over Judah. He wrote almost the entire book of Psalms. He was the most, in my eyes, the most amazing leader in the Old Testament. God called David to so much more than that back pasture experience. But David had his faults. David had his issues. David became king and he took advantage of the crown. This was a man after God's own heart. This was a man after God's own heart. But he took advantage of his position and he had a man killed because he wanted his wife to himself. He had Uriah killed. He had him personally. Hey, put him on the front lines and everybody back up because I want him taken care of because I want his wife. So his motive was, I didn't want to commit adultery, really. Because she's still married technically, but if her husband's killed, then she's not married anymore. So David wasn't a perfect man. David had his own issues. Here's the thing, in Psalms 22:6, I told you that David wrote most of the Psalms. And he is considered the author. There's a few of them he didn't write. But in Psalms 22:6, it says, this is David saying, David's writing, it says, but I am a worm, and I'm not a man. Scorned by everyone, despised by the people. This is the self-esteem where this is where the place where David was at. There was a moment, you're talking about the man that bowed his chest out, he was a king, and done great things, but there's moments where he said he felt like he was a worm. He felt like he was less than a man. He was despised. So this is a man that dealt with self-esteem issues as well. This is a place in his life. He didn't feel like he could be king. He didn't feel like he could even be a person. David was the unlikely brother. The king that took advantage of the power and killed Uriah and had Bathsheba for himself. You see, here's the thing. A lot of people believe that after they've committed the sin in their mind, after they've committed so many sins in their mind, they don't believe God's grace can cover them. David was at a place where it just seemed like sin just rushed up on him at one time. And it just overtook him, and he was at a place where, again, Psalm says it, he felt like a worm. He didn't feel like a man. He felt like he was almost where he's at a point where he could be forgiven. And believe it or not, I've had conversations with different people that felt like they couldn't walk into a church because they felt like they couldn't be forgiven. Guys, that's why Jesus died on the cross, because of the grace and the mercy. That's why He dripped that blood to cover you. David had issues. David was in a place where he felt like he was less than less. Number 3. Now, the Bible doesn't talk a lot directly about this person, but it does talk about her incorrectly, Mary Magdalene. Can anybody in here tell me anything about her? One fact about her? Any student? Does anybody in here can tell me anything? Come on, guys. Don't be embarrassed. Anybody in here tell me anything about Mary Magdalene? She was a harlot. That was the main thing that she was known for, is that she was a harlot. She was a prostitute, same thing. She was also demon-possessed. She had 7 demons in her at one time. She had a reputation. People didn't like her. And here's the thing, back then it wasn't necessarily that people talked about you. She had plenty of that, but she was thrown around, kicked around like a can because of the lifestyle that she chose. The lifestyle that she chose. She had shame. And tonight I need you to understand that no matter, and if she can be forgiven, and she was pretty bad, and there's been some pretty bad people in the Bible that had some bad things going on in their life. And I'm not saying anybody in here is at that point or that place, but sin. But Jesus washed her clean. But after the fact of the demons being drove out of her, I believe that's in Luke when it speaks about that. Check that out, like Luke 7 or 8, somewhere in that area. I just read it. Check it out. It doesn't say a whole lot about Mary Magdalene, but it does say that she was a devoted follower. She was one of the women there that was with Jesus' mom the day that Jesus took his last breath. The day that she was by the tomb. She was a follower. After the point where her sins were forgiven, she became a follower, almost like a disciple of Jesus. See, here's the thing. She didn't allow her past to rob from her plans that God had for her. She didn't allow her sin, she didn't allow her downfall to take away the plans that God had for her life, the promise. Because no matter the path that she had chosen, God still has a plan. God still has a plan. And number 4, you guys, everybody in here should know this person pretty well, Peter. You might tell me about Peter. You might give me one thing about Peter. He denied Jesus 3 times. Anybody else? There's a bunch on Peter. Come on, guys.
He cut off a man's ear.
Cut off a man's ear. Anybody else got anything? Come on, guys. He did for a short period of time, but he did. Peter was a fisherman. Peter was a fisherman, but also Peter was the guy. Peter was a little rough around the edges. And I've heard many pastors and preachers say this before, and I agree with this. If we had to categorize Peter, Peter would be a youth pastor. Because he's the guy that every time you turn around, he was making mistakes. He had a hot temper. He was just a little rough around the edges. He would probably, I can imagine him getting up here and saying crap and this and that, and I shouldn't really say that from the pulpit, but hey, that's just who I am. And that's Peter. That's who Peter was. Peter was an imperfect person. If Peter probably was one of those guys, if they had him back in the day, that had to have a little backpack with a monkey tail, hey, and Jesus had to have a hold on to it because he didn't let him out of the sight too far. Peter was a rough guy. He was quick to temper. Peter wasn't a perfect person, but Peter was one of the disciples. Why in the world would Jesus choose Peter? Jesus already knew who Peter was before it wasn't a mystery. But he chose it. The significant thing is in Luke 22, 57 through 62, it says, but he denied it. Woman, I don't know him. This is Peter speaking to a woman in the time of their capture of Jesus. I don't know him. A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." And Peter told this man, "I'm not. I don't know this guy." And about an hour later, someone else said, "Certainly this fellow is with Jesus. He is a Galilean." And then Peter replied, "Man, I don't know who you're talking about." Peter created amnesia. Just as he was speaking those words, the rooster crowed. And then Jesus turned and looked straight at Peter. Because he had done told Peter, "You're going to deny me 3 times. Before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times." Of course, Peter said, "No, Lord, I would never do that. I am with you to the death." But as you see, the rooster crowed and he had done denied him 3 times. Peter remembered the words that the Lord had spoken to him. Before the rooster crows, he would disown you 3 times. Then he went outside and wept bitterly. Of all people, Peter should have been killed right there. He denied Jesus to his face. He denied him. He was one of the 12. He was one of the boys. Understand, whenever it talks about Jesus having his little one-on-one meetings with his disciples, it was always Peter, James, and John. The 3 wildest guys he could have picked. Peter being the ringleader. Why Peter? Why Peter? We had a conversation at the house a couple of weeks ago. Why Peter? Why him? Of all people, why him? He definitely was probably the less godliest. He was. He was just hot-tempered. He didn't think about, hey, mercy and grace and this and that. He's like, "I'm going to cut your stinking ear off." And he did it. He didn't even think. He just did. He had no filter. So why did Jesus pick this man? And on top of that, Jesus knew that he denied him. And he picked him anyways. He picked him anyways. But not only that, the significant thing is, Jesus looked at Peter and said, "You know what? You're the rock I'm going to build my church on." Are you stinking kidding me? You just heard all the things that I said that Peter was going to do? But still you're going to build your church on this guy? Peter was close to Jesus. Peter wasn't a perfect guy. He lost his cool time after time. My last one, number 5. Judas. Anybody tell me anything about Judas? What is the significant thing that Judas is known for? He betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. In Luke 22:6-7, it says, "And Judas went to the chief priests and the officers of the temple guards and discussed with him how he might betray Jesus. They were delighted and agreed to give him money." That was 30 pieces of silver. He consented and watched for the opportunity to hand Jesus over to them when no crowd was present. Guys, you understand that Judas was a close companion to Jesus. Judas was a guy that got his priorities mixed up. And when in the midst of that, he allows Satan to come in and cause him to compromise. Let his guard down. See, Judas was a really quiet person for the most part. He wasn't like Peter, front runner, ready to beat somebody up. Understand that it didn't catch Jesus by surprise. It didn't catch him by surprise. See, understand, it goes back to the same thing as Peter. When Jesus chose Judas to be one of the 12 disciples, he knew what he was going to do. Even at the point of washing his feet, Jesus lowered himself and washed the feet of the disciples, even the one that was going to betray him. Even the one that was going to sell him out for 30 pieces of lousy silver. You see, in Psalms 41:9, it says, "You must trust your most," and this is, listen to this. This is in Psalms. This is way before the Synoptic Gospels. "My most trusted friend has turned against me, though he ate at the table with me." See, Jesus already knew that Even at the point of Him, choosing Him, He knew. He knew Judas was going to betray Him. That Judas was going to sell Him out. Real quick before I close, we have a video that I'm going to play. And after that, the band's going to come up and I'm going to close out. You guys watch this video.
Question was raised as my conscience fell, a silly little lie. It didn't mean much, but it lingers still in the corners of my mind. Still you call me to walk on the edge of this world, to spread my dreams and fly. The future's so far, my heart is so frail. I think I'd rather stay inside, but you love me anyway. It's like nothing in life that I've ever known. Yes, you love me anyway. Oh Lord, how you love me. More than my strength to simply be still, to seek but never find. All the reasons we change, the reasons I doubt, and why do loved ones have to die? But you love me anyway. It's like nothing in life that I've ever known. But you love me anyway. I am the sweat from your brow, but you love me anyway. I am the nail from your wrist, but you love me anyway. I am Judas's kiss, but you love me anyway. See now I am the man who yelled out from the crowd for your blood to be spilled on this earth, shaking round. Yes, then I turned away with a smile on my face, with this in my heart, trying to bury your grace. And yet alone in the night, I still call out for you. So shame my life, but you love me anyway. Oh God, how you love me. Yes, you love me anyway. It's like nothing in life that I've ever known. Yes, you love me anyway. Oh Lord, how you love me. Yes, you love me.
lifestyle choices, through their denials, one thing remained is that he loved them anyway. I don't know about you, but as a man, I don't know that I could choose someone to be on my team and turn around and know before I choose them that they're going to deny me. They're going to sell me out. Tonight in Romans 9, tonight, students, I want you to get something. That no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you say, no matter how many times you turn your back on him, no matter how many times you slap him in the face, how many times did you deny him? His love remains. Students, his love remains. His plans remain for you. See, Peter denied, but you see afterwards, God had a plan for his life. And even through Peter's denial, his plan was fulfilled. His plan was done. Tonight in Romans chapter 8, 38 and 39, it says, "And I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love. Neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries about tomorrow. Not even the power of hell can separate us from God's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below. Indeed, nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of Jesus. Nothing. Nothing. Students, tonight, if you get nothing from this tonight, know that He loves you. Know that He has a plan for you. Know that His Son died on the cross because He knew that you were going to make mistakes. He knew that you would make a bad choice. He knew that you would turn your back on Him in a moment. He knew it. But He still chose you. And He still chose you. And He still laid a plan out for you. He still gives you those promises. In those moments when you feel like you're all alone, He's still there, even though you deny Him. Even though you choose to live half-hearted for Him, He loves you anyways. You see the story that I told earlier about the change and the money. You see, understand that God knew before His Son was even born, before the prophecy was ever brought to Mary, that He knew that we would do the things that we do, and that He knew that we would make the wrong choices. But He still chose for Jesus to be born, walk on this earth for 33 years, living a sinless, blameless life, to only die on a cross, to be ridiculed, to be spit at, to be cursed, to be told that He was a fake, to be made fun of. But He still sent Him because He loved you that much. Guys, I don't know about you, but it took all I could do all week as I watched that video just to hold back. Because just to know that He loved me anyways, even though that tomorrow I may make a wrong choice, tomorrow you may make a wrong choice, but He's still going to love you. He's still going to have a plan for you, and He's still going to cover you. He still loves you. Even though Mom and Daddy may not be getting along, He still loves you. Even though you made a mistake today, even though you may have done some things in the past like Mary Magdalene, maybe you made the wrong choice, but He still loves you. He still loves you. Tonight we're going to do it a little bit different, but tonight, I don't know about you, but it just stirs in me to know that someone can have that kind of compassion for me. To know that someone can have that kind of love for me. To know that right now in this moment, if He had to do it all over again, He'd still put His Son on the cross for me. And He'd still put Him on a cross for of that cross and saturate the ground. He'd still do it for me today. He'd still do it for you today to prove His love to you. And so many times we just turn our backs and take it for granted and take it like a grain of salt and say, you know what, we've heard it all over our life. Have you really thought about the sacrifice that Jesus made for you? Have you really thought about it? That you're that crown of thorns that was put on His head. That tomorrow, that lie that you may tell, that's that one stake that goes in His wrist. Tomorrow, that moment when Jesus speaks into your life and says, hey, why don't you say something nice to this person, and you deny to do it. That's one whip across the back. Or that moment whenever mom and daddy doesn't know God. And it's that prime opportunity for you to share your faith and to share the love of Jesus. But you decide to stay in your room and say nothing. That's that spirit to the side. Tonight, students, do you understand the sacrifice that was made for you? Do you understand the sacrifice that was made for you? So tonight, as these guys play, they're going to play the song called Forever. Tonight, I need you to understand and remember that word forever. Because that's what God's love is. It goes on and on and on and on. So tonight, if you're that person and you say, you know what, I've taken His love for granted. Tonight, you're that person that says, I've slacked Him, I've denied Him, I've cursed Him, I've questioned the ability that He's called me to do, and I've questioned the place, I've questioned the path that He said that I should walk down. If any of that fits you, if you've ever turned your back, if that's you tonight, if that's any part of your life, whether it was today, whether it was 10 years ago, tonight I challenge you to get out of your seat and just find you a place at this altar and just love on Him. And say, God, thank you for your love that's inseparable. Your love that's inseparable. So as I begin to play, feel free to find yourself a place at this altar. And if you need one of us as leaders, come get us. We'll pray with you. We'll pray next to you. We'll pray for you, whatever you need.
The morning stars, the light, the morning sun was here. The Savior of the world was fallen. His body on the cross, His blood poured out for us. The weight of every curse was broken. Lamb has overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb has overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb has overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb has overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb has overcome. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. We sing hallelujah. The Lamb has began to shake. The stone was rolled away. His perfect love could not be overcome. Now death was your sting. A resurrected King has rendered your decree.
Guys, you see tonight is not about us. Because in that single moment, it wasn't about Jesus. God, the word even says that God even turned his head. He even had to turn his head because that was his own son. But he knew what he had to do because of you, because of me. He knew what he had to do. He knew that he was going to go ahead and spend his life, even though that there's a chance that he may get nothing in return. He spend his life because he loves you that much. So tonight, as this service winds down, and as we go in tomorrow, and you go into, and that's only a half a day tomorrow. You guys are off Friday for Good Friday, and then we go into the weekend for Easter for the outreach. Guys, understand and remember this. Remind yourself.